Hi, it's Darren from SimNation. Just wanted to do a quick video of a preview of the WWPF, which is SimNation's Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2023 League, which of course is a Wolverine Studios title. I highly recommend taking a look at it, whether you play single player or you play in online leagues or want to. It is probably one of the best in this genre. If you do want to play in an online league, I would highly recommend WWPF. We have a very active group in Slack, and a lot of the owners are themselves probably some of the best coaches I've ever seen. I'm going to kind of delve in first with what the computer is predicting, and then I'm going to kind of talk about what I'm predicting. So if you look at the screen in front of you, it has Green Bay winning the North, Carolina winning the South, Dallas winning the East, and San Francisco winning the West in the NFC, with Chicago, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, and Arizona the number twos. If you extrapolate, they're saying either Chicago, Philadelphia, or Arizona is going to be one of the two wild cards, so between those three teams. In the AFC, definitely have Pittsburgh winning the North, Indianapolis winning the South, New York Jets winning the East, Oakland winning the West, with Baltimore, Tennessee, New England, and San Diego coming in at number two, with Baltimore and San Diego the two wild cards. If you just looked at pure vote total, they're really saying the New York Jets are going to probably win the title this year. Now that makes DP happy, and if I was just looking at the votes, I would say it's New York versus San Francisco. I don't think the CPU is wrong in that, actually. I think that they came close to that. Now, the journey to get there, I think, is going to look different. What I would say is if we look at the North, I think that there's a clear cut number one, which is Green Bay. DWK has done a great job with Green Bay in the offseason. We'll take a quick look there. Um, and he's strengthened them. They're not going to win based on passing attack. They're going to win more based on rushing and defense, where they are both. They're good at both. Just if you look at the running back, uh, Jesse Seaton's had a really good career so far. Johnny Watson, I think, is special. I think that he's going to have a really good year, especially if DWK plays them. On the defense, they have a lot of the pieces you want to see. Their line is really, really good. So I brought up Ahmed Alexander or Harold Healy, and Lewis Hedges are all really strong defensive linemen. If I remember correctly, they drafted Rudolph Matthews, and I'm right. He's a really good rookie defensive tackle. I want to say, yeah, he's from TCU. So I like Green Bay. Coming in at number two for me is likely going to be Minnesota. I think the thing that's going to hold back Minnesota this year is quarterback and defense. They have a really, really solid running back core, and they have a good offensive line. But I think where they struggle a little bit is on the defensive front. Um, well, the defense is just not as strong as you'd want to see it be. They don't have a lot of great speed, as you can see. They do have strength, and that may help, but I don't think that's going to get them past Green Bay. Green Bay is one of those teams I just think is better. And then, of course, Detroit will probably come in number three and Chicago number four. Not going to look at those two teams. The reason why I think Chicago will come in last is they just had a horrible offseason. They didn't really do much to improve the team. If Pops comes back at Detroit, that would be like the X factor, because I think if he comes back, I think that Detroit makes a run. It's clear cut in the South. It's going to be Carolina. I think there's just not a team in the South that can compete against Carolina. Tampa Bay's getting close, but they're not quite there yet. And as you look at Carolina, um, they have a really good quarterback in Zelensky, who took them far last year. They have good running backs. They have a good defense. They had a really solid draft this year. Um, if I remember correctly, they drafted Barreto last year. The only thing that may hurt Carolina is depth. In a lot of different places, they're not as deep as you'd like to see. But I mean, that offense is just going to be humming again, and they've got a fairly good defense. Tate's getting up there on age, but they drafted Wesley, who was a really good rookie. And then, if I remember correctly, They drafted some other rookie that was really, really phenomenal. Sorry, bear with me. Who was that? Oh, Corey Jackson is a guard who I was high on before the draft, but I really like Resley. I think he's a game changer for them, especially with Tate getting older. Tampa Bay comes in at number two for me. I think that, again, what's going to hold Tampa Bay back this year is the same thing that held them back last year, which is quarterback. They haven't really improved though, but they have a fairly solid defense. And I think that that is actually going to be what helps them quite a bit. Plus, they drafted a couple of like some of my favorites, like Louis Parker alone. He was one of the best strong safeties I've seen come out of the draft in a long time, and I think he's a game changer onto himself. Plus, Joseph Hole and Modesto Westbrook are both really solid candidates still. Um, I don't expect Atlanta to make a lot of noise. New Orleans could. They were on the cusp of making it to the playoffs last year before Skelter bounced them. But I think it's really going to be Carolina, and then Tampa Bay is a potential wild card team, as is Minnesota. In the East, the funny thing about Templar at Dallas is he turns his roster over like majorly every single season, and yet still has success. So I'm hoping he doesn't try to start William Ash. William Ash is just not a guy you want at your quarterback, but Harry Harrell is. He's dealing with some injuries, as you can see. His depth is probably not as deep as he'd like to see it. But this is a team that is just, when they're on, and they've been on for a couple of seasons now. So Cecil Apple is a game changer at wide receiver, so is Jason Higgins. Um, I didn't especially like the draft that Templar had, but it wasn't horrible. So as you can see, he has Seymour Kinsey, who is out of Indiana, if I remember correctly, who really high on him. But I think Templar got the right pieces to be able to continue his little dynasty he's got going there. Of course, the person who's going to threaten him, and I think this is going to be really, really close this season, is Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is, of course, run by the immortal Skelter, who has come back to us. And I think outside of the fact that Skelter doesn't have a quarterback, which he doesn't really care about, because he's going to run the ball candidly probably like 900 times in the season. Uh, I think that they have a pretty good chance of beating Dallas if they can win the head to head. If they don't, it's definitely going to go Dallas's way. But they've got a good defense. They've got a really solid offensive line. They have really good running backs. This is the type of team that Skelter likes, and I think he's going to give a lot of grief to Templar in the East. Although I still do like Templar to win the division. Sorry, Skelter. I know. Just know I love you, right? The wild card in this division for me is New York. For those who are not aware of what happened in the draft, they moved up and they got Marcus Witten. Marcus Witten, as you can see, 100 arm, 92 intelligence, 90 accuracy. He's a once in a lifetime type quarterback. The only problem I have with Marcus Witten on the New York Giants is, do they have enough weapons to actually use him effectively? And I will say that Cable has done a very good job of building an offense around him. So I think that New York could win 6 games this year, or they could win 10. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. I think that they're still 1 year out because I don't think they have the defense yet for it, but they're going to make a lot of noise in the East. So there is the potential that they could actually get 10 wins this year or 9 wins and sneak into the playoff. If Udo was back at Washington, I would be higher on Washington, but Udo's out temporarily. So until he comes back, I'm not expecting much out of Washington. The big news here, of course, is Stewart had a great offseason with San Francisco. He had a bad season last year, probably got really pissed off, and then came back with a fury. I like the signing of James Martin, candidly. I think Martin is one of the best. He drafted one of my favorite running backs in Nathan Ford. I mean, 98 speed. Come on, seriously? 74 strength. that guy's a gamer. He's got all the right pieces. He dramatically improved this roster very, very much in the offseason to where I think that they may be going to the championship game from the NFC. So great job. Now, the person that will probably get in our way at some point is Barry with the Los Angeles Rams. Barry is really, really good based on what we saw kind of a little bit last season. Um, and I'm pretty high on this team. I think that Barry can actually really turn them around and get them headed in the right direction. Now, are they good enough to take out San Francisco? I don't know. If they lose Miller, I think the season's going to be a wash for them. But again, he's got solid running backs with Bivens and Dickinson. He's got a good line. The wide receiver is not as deep as I'd want it to be. I think the area that San Francisco may hurt them is in the cornerback realm. And then, of course, they have some key injuries to some people that they actually need to hopefully get healthy pretty quick. But I think a lot of these guys are probable or doubtful, which means they'll get them back pretty fast. Who won't be making noise this year was Arizona, who made it to the playoffs last season, surprisingly. Good CPU team, just don't expect it. Seattle will finish in the bottom. And I think if you want to join this league and you want to go into the NFC, the New Orleans Saints, the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks are the teams I would look at. So if you made me pick, I think Carolina gets the number one seed. I think San Francisco's number two. I think the wild card teams, the division winners will be Dallas and Green Bay, and then I think the wild card teams. It's going to be a toss up, but I'm just going to make a prediction and say it's Philadelphia, New York. I think Minnesota gets close, but is on the outside looking in. And then the conference championship, I like it to be San Francisco versus Carolina, with San Francisco winning it and Stewart making it to the championship game. On the AFC side, I do think that the CPU is right. I do think Pittsburgh will win the division again this year. They're going to have some pretty stiff competition, though. The reason why I think that they'll win is they did improve themselves in the draft quite a bit, and they didn't really lose anybody from that 16-0 team last season that went to the championship game and won. So they still have Lackey. They have pretty much the same offensive line, the same secondary, although the secondary got stronger with people like Travis and Helms, as well as, if I remember correctly, Morin was someone that they signed. Kind of trying to get in their way, though, is going to be Baltimore. This is Kevin. Kevin is a really good owner, and he's done a good job. My biggest concern with Baltimore is depth. If they lose Merrick or Murray, Murray gets hurt almost every season. I think they're going to be in trouble at quarterback because I don't think you're going to be able to go out and find one. The offensive line is not as good as I'd like it to be, um, but I don't think that's going to hold back that offense because I mean, they added Childs, who's a really good wide receiver. They already had Alvarez, who they picked up last year in the draft. I think the key here is can they slow down Pittsburgh's rushing attack? And that's going to be important because the other team in play is going to be Cleveland. So Bio Eagle just had a phenomenal offseason. He picked up Sparks in the draft. I was high on Sparks. He's out on Marshall. He's a great leader, good trigger man for that offense, which is something that Bio's been missing for a while. And then he's got a decent offensive line. Again, worried about the depth at wide receiver. You are going to have to throw the ball when you go up against people like New York, Oakland, uh, New England, Indianapolis, and so forth. But he's got a really solid defense too. So I still like Baltimore to edge out Cleveland, but the North could actually put three teams into the playoffs this year. So right now, if you had to press me, it's Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Um, this one's a little bit harder with the South. So Starfinder has retired out of the league at Jacksonville, which leaves JP, Rick, and Bama. So Bama came in late last year, so we don't have a great idea of how good Bama is. I will tell you in SNCFL, he's already proven himself to be a pretty good coach. He has Virginia Tech and has them humming. But I do think that Indianapolis does win the division. Um, Again, this is one of those where Rick had a decent draft. He didn't do anything to hurt the team. The team is still in pretty good shape. I don't like the addition of Luna. I do love the addition of Felder, though. He was a quarterback that I actually recruited at Oklahoma when I was there. He added Barton at tight end. That's a really big pickup. And then he just did some other things in the draft that just solidified his defense and made it much tougher. Like he picked up McIntyre, who was one of the better linebackers in the draft, got Barton, who was a good, strong safety. I mean, he did a lot of things to improve the team, and I think he's in really good shape there. I think the team that's going to probably contend the most with him is Tennessee. Tennessee was already a strong roster to begin with. Despite his stats, Richmond has been a pretty good quarterback over the years. He also has a lot of young talent, which is really good, and they're good talent, as you can see, like Chester Spear at running back. He was a fullback, but him at running back gives him a speed option that not a lot of teams has. He has a good fast tight end. He has a good solid wide receiver core. The cornerback core, his defensive backfield is going to compete with most teams. And he's got a solid defense. So I think it's going to be close, but I think Indianapolis edges Tennessee, who will come in second. And then I think Houston comes in number three. I'm not as high on Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville was on, despite their success last year, they weren't going to do that good this year. I do like the pickup of Gilbert. It'll be interesting to see. Gilbert kind of reminds me a little bit of Hollingsworth, who was a Pittsburgh quarterback, so we'll see how that plays out. But again, Houston is a solid team, and just like the North, you could see three teams make it in out of the South. So it'll be interesting to watch that dynamic through the season. East, Sharks gonna hate me for this, but it's clear cut. DP's gonna win this division. The Jets are still humming. If you look at their aggregated average score, it sucks, but you should never look at that. First of all, they got Spriggs, they got Bryant. They didn't really lose anybody again, so they've got a lot of their core wide receivers still in place. And these wide receivers are hard as hell to defend because you got Martin with 97 speed, Roberts with 93, Sullivan with 92. His tight ends are fast as shit with 89 and 87. This offense will hum. Now, the key for him is going to be is can his defense actually stop uh, teams like Oakland and Pittsburgh who have got to play this year. If you look at them, their schedule's not the easiest in the world, which is, I think, maybe going to trip them up because they get Dallas on the road, they get Indianapolis on the road, they get Pittsburgh at home, and they get Oakland at home, but then they get Philadelphia. So if they don't win the division, it's going to be because of the out of conference games or the out of division games. Coming in second is a clear cut New England. Shark has. It's a shame that Shark's in the same division with DP, but Shark has improved his team again, and I think he's in a pretty good position to have a good run this year and definitely make the playoffs. Adding people like Libby, definitely. I think Libby's actually going to Baltimore, if I remember correctly, or someplace like that. But he's got a very solid squad. He did a pretty good job in the draft again. Whether you like Shark or not, he's a very, very good owner. And I think that he puts a lot of passion into this game and he does a great job. So I do think he'll finish second, but it's going to be a close second. He'll definitely make the playoffs as a wild card. Miami, on paper, is probably one of the best teams in the league. Now, the reality is they aren't. So I think they did a good job with picking up Albert Scholl in the draft. They've continued to improve themselves. They got England at guard. They got Emmanuel Clark, who's another good tackle. But I think the problem is that Soa just hasn't been able to put it together yet. And I don't think that's going to change this season. I don't see Soa getting past New England and New York. They're just too good. Buffalo, unfortunately, will come in at number three. If you really want to look at a team in the AFC to join, I would say Buffalo or San Diego are the two big ones. They have probably one of my favorite quarterbacks in Benjamin Antonio, who was a rookie who was taken pretty high in the draft. Again, 98 arm, 77 intelligent, 97 accuracy. That's a really good quarterback. When we look at the West, it begins and ends with Oakland. Oakland will win the division. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pito did a very good job in the offseason of getting draft picks and then using them, uh, and then picking people up and making his team better. I think the key here is going to be if Denham can stay healthy. I do love the pickup of Charles Easterling. He already has Andrew Leonard. It's kind of not fair, but Pito's a really good drafter in many cases. Whether you love him or hate him too, he does a phenomenal job of managing his team. Um, Pendergrass is a pain to deal with. He's got really solid wide receivers like Michael Brooks. You also have Reagan and Cerna. So the key here is going to be is his defense bounce back and good enough to be able to compete. It was his defense that really hurt him last year. I don't think the defense is quite as good as it should be. And I think that's going to cause him some problems later in the season. But if anyone can overcome it, it's Peter. He knows the game extremely well, and he'll be able to figure it out. I think coming in at number two is Denver. Uh, the computer would say Kansas City. I would say that on paper, San Diego. But Denver, there's an intrinsic value in Prince as a coach. He's done a great job with this team. Lavelle is a really good quarterback. He's got great wide receivers. He's got a good line. Uh, Again, defense is a little questionable at times with all the West teams, as a matter of fact. But I think he did a better job of building his defense up a little bit. So I think he comes in at number two. Then San Diego's at number three, who's a good team to take, and Kansas City number four. So I think the number one seed this year is New York. I think the number two seed is a toss up between Oakland or Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with Oakland, which would make Pittsburgh in the wild card round as the division winner of the North, and Indianapolis as the division winner of the South. And then I think Baltimore makes the playoffs, and I think New England makes the playoffs. So I want to say that the wild card here is Bama at Tennessee, and Prince at Denver. Any of those other two could make it easily. And then, of course, I think the conference championship game is likely going to be New York versus Oakland, with New York winning it, and then Stewart and DP will fight it out between San Francisco and New York, and I like San Francisco. So I think the NFC finally gets back into the championship bucket after I think 2 years of having the AFC win it. Um, the players to watch this year, definitely Lackey had an amazing season last year as a rookie out of Pittsburgh. You'll want to keep an eye on the rookie quarterbacks, Witten, Sparks, Antonio, Shaw, are people to keep a close eye on. There are also people like Martin, and any wide receiver from the New York Jets is probably going to have a stellar season. You have New England with, I think his name is Hillman, I think. And I apologize for missing the name, Shark. Yeah, Hicks, sorry. I don't know why I was thinking Hillman, but you have Hicks, who I think is going to have a pretty good season. He normally does. And Oakland, it really comes down. If Denham can stay healthy, Denham is a Raynor type quarterback. It's just he hasn't been able to stay healthy. On the flip side, it'll be interesting to watch Skelter and Templar go at it this season. I really like those two as coaches, but I think that there's a kind of a little bit of grudge match still. So that's it for now. I am looking forward to the season. I think we're going to have a great season. If you want to join us, first sim is on Friday. If you get in after Friday, or you let me know before Friday, I'll get you set up so that way you're in week two and can play. But it's going to be a pretty wide open season, so we'll see if Pittsburgh can defend their perfect season and their championship the previous year, or will the championship go back to the NFC at some point? Or is it going to be Oakland, or will DP finally get the thing that's eluded him for a while, which is a championship? Or will Shark get past him and Shark finally get what has eluded him as well? So if you have a look, and I'll just show you real quick, um, the championships have largely been won by the same people. So last year was the Steelers with me. The year before was the Raiders with Peter. The year before that was the Raiders with Peter. And the year before that was the Raiders with Peter. And then Gary was the last person to win it that was not from the AFC with his Eagles. So hopefully we'll see a lot more wide open competition, but who knows? So that's it for now. Hope you all have a great day. Talk to you later.